Walmart is huge, more valuable than Samsung, Coca-Cola, and Nestle combined. And they recently shook things up with a new logo. Now, can you spot the difference between the old and new Walmart logos?
They're the same picture.
Which left a lot of people wondering, did Walmart actually spend $1.25 million for that? That's ridiculous. Now, we'll get back to that dollar amount later, but first, I'm Linus, a graphic designer and creative lead who has worked in branding for the better part of 2 decades, and I completely understand why people had this reaction. But I think this framing is misleading, or at least misinformed. But why this take was so popular boils down to how companies and agencies talk about rebrands, and a failure on the part of designers like myself to actually explain to regular people how branding works. So if you want to understand why what Walmart did actually makes total sense, stick around as I try to break down the corporate jargon and explain what rebranding actually is. This video is sponsored by Nebula. Quick disclaimer, this is in no way an endorsement of the ethics or business practices of Walmart or any other brands we'll touch on. It's just to serve as a common point of reference. The same ideas apply to branding independent businesses, nonprofits, even cities and governments. Brand Jargon 101. So what's the difference between a logo, a visual identity, and a brand? Let's use this metaphor. If you think of a company or organization as a person, the logo would be their face. It's the most common way you identify them and the first thing you might notice about them. A visual identity would be their personal style, their hair and makeup, perhaps how their glasses frame their face, their signature look. Think of celebrities you can identify without even seeing their face. The brand is their reputation, the feelings, ideas, and assumptions that are triggered when you recognize them. And that reputation will change depending on who you ask. There are companies with very strong brands but mediocre logos, and vice versa. Having a great logo is no guarantee of a strong reputation, any more than having a beautiful face is. Rebranding. When people say rebranding or brand refresh, they usually mean the visual identity is being updated, which may or may not include changes to the logo. The vast majority of times this happens for one of 2 reasons. The first, and usually flashier, is to signal a change in direction, new ownership, new market positioning, or a new focus. This is like changing your personal style because you want people to look at you differently, to change your reputation. You can see this with Mark Zuckerberg's very deliberate image makeover, how he wants to shape the perception of his personal brand. Same can be seen with another recent rebrand, Jaguar. It's a 180-degree turn from its existing audience to try to capture a totally different demographic, and to signal that, they completely overhauled the visual identity. Will it convince anyone in the long term? Can they commit to the bit? Time will tell. The second, more mundane but totally legitimate reason is because the longer a visual identity system is used, the harder it becomes to keep things consistent. And eventually, you need to start fresh and get everything back on track. It's like technical debt in coding. A newly launched brand system starts off pristine and perfect. It all ties together neatly with no weird exceptions or contradictions. But especially for multinational or mega corporations, there will always be new applications that were outside of the original scope. If you've never experienced Walmart in person, here's something you might not know. Walmart is the largest private employer in the US with 1.6 million employees domestically. That's more people than the entire population of Philadelphia, which would make them America's 6th largest city if they all lived in one place. Think of all the things that the Walmart brand has to touch points in branding jargon. For thousands of stores, there's interior and exterior signage, shelving and point of sale, uniforms, carts. You have all the marketing stuff like advertising, catalogs, social media, and then the various websites and the app. And that's just what you see as the customer. That's without getting into internal software tools, communications, training materials, logistics centers. I could go on. Before 2025, the last time the Walmart brand was refreshed was 2008. 17 years ago, people didn't shop on their phones. They were still on the iPhone 3G, and it was the first iPhone to have an app store. Imagine all the other things that have changed in that time. For example, new social media platforms, digital shelf labeling, vertical video ads. Those would all have to be incorporated into the existing brand as they became adopted, extending and changing the original guidelines along the way. A brand refresh is an opportunity for designers to consider all the most important touch points and create a cohesive system that works for 2025 without the baggage of an aging and complex system. So it makes complete sense that the changes to the visual identity, and especially the logo, were pretty minimal. It's not about the stuff you see on the surface, it's mostly about the framework and the guidelines that Walmart will use to produce all these touch points moving forward. From app UX animations to price labels, that's all part of the new brand. There are two other reasons why this is a smart move for them. First, of course, is brand recognition. A dramatic rebranding can tank recognizability. A classic case study is the Tropicana Juice Company. In 2009, they killed their iconic orange with a drinking straw logo on their packaging as part of a brand refresh, and sales plummeted to the point they had to bring it back. The other more practical reason is that with their sheer scale, it's going to take a while before the new rebrand is completely rolled out. Likely multiple years before every touchpoint across their many stores is up to date. This transition will be a lot less jarring for the customer if the visual changes are subtle, like changing from one shade of blue to another, rather than changing from blue to an orange or black brand. So you can think of Walmart's brand refresh as a new chapter in a movie franchise. The lead actors and the characters are the same, but the setting is new. Whereas Jaguar's rebrand is like a movie reboot, or a rather chaotic reimagining at that. Of course, most of the time, rebrands fall in the middle ground between those two extremes. Hopefully, if you're a regular person who has never given this much thought before, I've given you a basic way to think about it for the next time some logo redesign hits the news. Was it worth $1.25 million? If that figure is even accurate, probably. Although that amount is really just pocket change compared to the cost of implementing the new brand. It's complicated, but rather than go down that tangent here, I put my full thoughts on the numbers as well as going deep into the nerdy details of the new logo and typeface in an exclusive companion video over on Nebula. I had a Patreon for a few years on this channel, but it just wasn't the right fit. So now the best way to support the channel and get future exclusive bonus content from me is by joining Nebula. But when you do, you get so much more than just that. Nebula is a streaming service built by creators for curious nerds. Think of it like Netflix, but for people who love urbanism and deep dives on logistics. There's plenty of great stuff on there for the design curious, from Neo on this iconic chair, Tantacruel on user interfaces, and Stuart Hicks on architecture. In fact, you can even watch his video all about the architecture of Walmart. But there are so many great creators on Nebula where you can watch our videos ad-free, often days ahead of when they get published elsewhere, as well as bonus material like extended cuts, companion videos, and interviews, as well as a growing variety of original shows, documentaries, and movies. Using my link to sign up will get you a 40% discount on a yearly subscription, which comes out to $36 a year, which is $3 a month. But we also have monthly plans, a lifetime plan, and even gift cards. If you're interested in supporting the channel and getting access to the fastest growing collection of thoughtful content from independent creators, check it out at the link below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.